Okay, so welcome everyone to this Monday, the 9th of October, meeting of the Hunter Living Histories, or showcase of Hunter Living Histories, Return to Yallarwah. I just wish to pay my respects to the lands of the Awabakal people who are we meeting on physically today at the University of Newcastle, and pay my respects to their elders, both past, present and those emerging. And I also wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that you're zooming in to us from, where you are zooming into us from, and similarly pay our respects to those custodians and elders past, present and emerging. So we have a number of presentations today, and the first to kick us off will be Emeritus Professor Tim Roberts, AM.
Should I go up there? Sorry.
If you like, you can just speak wherever you are, we'll hear you. And Tim will be speaking on the 50th anniversary of biology at the University of Newcastle. Over to you, Tim.
Thanks very much, and I won't hold you for very long. I wish you every success with your Yallarwah discussions. I am organising the 50th anniversary of biology, started in 1973. We're having a conference from the 4th to the 5th of November. Not a great anybody, everybody talking to those colleagues who may have gone through the biology department in the last 50 years. We will have a dinner on Saturday night. We will go to the PhD students conference on Monday, and we'll go to a lunch on Tuesday. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Over to you.
That's fantastic. That's an extraordinary performance.
I've never heard one so short.
They're all going to be first and most before we run down the road. Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Great. Okay, so now to return to Yallarwah. So we have 5 presenters. So the first is Dr. Ray Kelly, who's out there in Zoom land. Hello, Ray, who will be speaking on the then of everything.
Yes. Good afternoon, friends. Yes, my name is Ray Kelly. I am Ray Kelly. Paul and my God, Susan, my God, Susan, apologies. We've been friends a long time. I'm trying to keep up with Paul. You'll know what I mean in about 2 seconds when I get off. Talking about the word in any traditional language in Australia, the word for then is a difficult word because it translates to the place that it happened. It really means Barri, and Barri also means place. The place where something happened is the place where it occurred, and so we don't say it happened then, we say it happened there. So Barri is important. Yallarwah is an important place. It's important because it holds now, an enormous amount of memory and story that reaches clearly from its centre base at John Hunter, but extends right out through the region and across across the country. You'll be hearing from us today about a number of key players and the key individuals who helped bring Yallarwah to bear, and hopefully you may get to feel or experience for some of us this very real sense of gratitude and pride for a community, but this heartfelt sense of a community. Now I've set it up and Susan's now going to give you the magic. Is that right, Joni?
You talking to me or Johnny? Yeah, that's right.
Well done, Ray. I think you beat me on the race there. I don't think I can do it as short as that. I didn't expect such short presentations today. We're going to be done in half an hour at this rate. All right, over to Susan Harvey on the big magic of Novocastrian Tales and Yallarwah Place. And also to introduce Novocastrian Tales, Heart of a Nation, the 8-minute film.
So thank you, Johnny. And thank you, Ray. When I think about the beginnings of Novocastrian Tales, I sense, feel, see a vast field of energy floating above our river, the beach, the city, waiting, created by us, waiting for us to respond. So how did this big magic manifest itself? Well, my mother died. Suddenly, without warning, it was February 1996. In the aftermath, amid the grief and power released by a death, and as suggested by Mum, Paul talked about applying for funding being offered by Newcastle City Council to write something to celebrate the 1997 bicentenary of Newcastle and the Hunter. I reacted by slamming my coffee cup on the kitchen bench and asking, why don't you create something with a team for a change? Did I sense the magnitude, the power of the possibilities? Did I want to be involved? After some reflection, the vision became clear to Paul. A collection of short stories from pre-white settlement to the future, written by Novocastrians or those with close associations to Newcastle. Indigenous writers. We connected with Donna Meehan and Ray Kelly, and later Uncle Bob Smith. Local journalists, Mike Scanlon, Chad Watson, Madeline Randall, local academics, Norman Talbot, John Ramsland and others. National heroes with a link to the city. Yahoo Series, John Doyle, John Bell, Philip Adams, Kate Walker, the Biggins family, too many to mention here. And of course our own local hero, Paul F. Walsh. All stories were to be donated to the book. What will we do with any money raised? Paul rang John Hunter Hospital Public Relations, and at that moment in time, the Aboriginal Liaison Officer, Philip Towney, was sitting opposite the Public Relations Officer Jane in her office when Paul rang. The desire for an accommodation centre for the relatives of Indigenous people was raised. John Hunter Hospital is a tertiary referral hospital for northwestern New South Wales. While the Kookaburra cottages were available for such purposes, the Aboriginal culture of extended family support really needed a purpose-built facility. How perfect given the context. A celebration of 200 years of shared history, the possibility of deep healing. Big magic. Newcastle City Council, in their wisdom, knocked back our proposal, no funding there. However, Newcastle Permanent Building Society agreed to underwrite the project and support our vision with their staff and infrastructure, another big magic outcome. None of us had a clue just how big this would get. Gough Whitlam agreed to write the preface. Big magic. Over time, we had over 40 authors on board, incredible community support. The list of supporters filled 5 pages of the program created for the opening of the building. 5 pages. Yes, we built the building. Big magic. Paul had the inspired idea to pre-sell the book through the Perm branches. This was promoted via a TV campaign thanks to the Perm and NBN TV. It included some of the larger-than-life authors, and order forms were included in the Perm's regular correspondence with its customers. In fact, we had the money to cover the costs for printing the book before it went to print. Paul and I worked tirelessly for 3 years, and joyfully. There was a running joke at the time that I organised Paul and Paul organised everything else. The phone started to ring at 8 a.m. Monday and stopped ringing at 5 p.m. on Fridays. The weekends were bringing it all together and then preparing for the week ahead. For a year and a half, we communicated with authors, collected stories, typed them up, edited them, organised them into a timeline, researched colonial documents for inclusion. Much of the content of the colonial documents was unknown to us. Most of it was utterly horrifying with regard to the British treatment of the original people. Unspeakable. Much of it still remains unspoken, so not enough of us know. Paul's stories created links across time, interspersed between the other tales. A collection of stories, all entitled with the names of native birds. And yes, he was the mysterious author, K. Cole. K. Cole's autograph was regularly sought after at the many book signings we held. We worked with a small army of volunteers to create the book and manifest the building. The book was launched on September 5th, 1997 in the grounds of John Hunter Hospital. The then Deputy Premier, Andrew Revshorgy, committed to $3 for every dollar raised from book sales. He was in the unique position of being Minister for Health and Minister for Aboriginal Affairs. Big magic. Therefore, thereafter we were selling books, organising and attending marketing events and book signings and counting the money. Then we turned our attention to building and furnishing the building and creating the memorial walk into the bush. Across those 3 years, I watched as healing took place in me, in others. Today I look back and see that the whole process was the manifestation of a deep community desire to come to a place of wholeness within and oneness across time. How fitting that the outcome was a place of healing for our Indigenous brothers and sisters. The building opened on February 19th, 1999, just 2 days after the 3rd anniversary of Mum's death. For me, in this moment, here and now, I look back with gratitude in the recognition of the magnitude of what we all undertook. An act of trust in what we said yes to, trust in each other, trust in the desired outcome. If that isn't big magic, I don't know what is. So now here is one step along the way, the creation of this short video entitled Heart of Our Nation. The video that captures the sense of wonder that in hindsight imbued the whole project and its overall intent. The film was co-created by Keir Enderby of NBN TV and Paul, and directed and produced by Keir, who happened to be the son of Kep Enderby, the Attorney General in the Whitlam government. We were carried along by the big magic. The community, the city, the region joined us. We only ever saw a successful outcome.
Yalanta para pula, Montobon Yetrobo, Wakakaba, Moroka Kaba, Kakali, Montobon Noa Yutatin, Tukoi Takawa, Kalang, Mararong, Noa Awa, Marayo, Olin, Rai, Burong, Urayantin, Ulong, Narikam, Wakakalang, Karaki, Tara, Green, Nakaral, Ikora, Olanka, Maring, Winter, Miracle. Nakalin, Untobung, Yantinala, Untobung na Orin, Petra, Ikora, Panalo, Nokon, Ki, Muni, Panala, Yitrabu, Untu, Ora.
In 1797, an Awabakal man sits in the shade of Nobbies with his young grandson. The old man is a teller of tales, with an eye to the future. He recalls a dream of peace and plenty for his tribe. And as he tells the tale in the present, he throws a pebble into the sea. In 1997, a Novocastrian man sits in the shade of Nobbies with his young grandson. The old man is a teller of tales, with an eye to the past. He recalls a dream of peace and plenty for his tribe. And, as he tells the tale in the present, he throws a pebble into the sea. In the depths, where the pebbles meet, there we shall find our tales.
Fertile land and sweet waters, provident. Night's magic net flung wide, reverent. Possums food searching, snickering the earth sheltered by the mighty cedar, the breath of a people. It's been said that the ear of the people who loved the murmurings and silences of the earth was so attuned that destiny itself whispered to them of an impending violation which would strip the valley of its cloak and sour its waters, which would deflect the tide of reverence and claim the earth, the heart of a people. Fires in the night by the banks of the river on the fringe of an untroubled land. When the ocean cast its weary voyages into that still place, the people were waiting, and the valley held its breath.
Of you and me.
Fact and fiction.
Poetic diction.
A love affair.
Or two, or three.
The smell of coal smoke.
Of industry.
My attitude to Newcastle as a kiddie was at best ambivalent.
We all read a laugh.
We all read a murder.
What possessed Gordon to purchase the very attractive hot pink and fluoro number? I'll never know.
Ask a wild, reckon. To find the truth, you must invent it.
Of course, the pub crawl can always be more than just a fine social outing.
Derby Street was baked by a summer that everyone used to have.
The face isn't as clear anymore, but in my thinking, I knew who she was.
That's when the Mayor of Hanoi blew in. The Mayor of Hanoi blew into the Newcastle Workers' Club. I was there on a Saturday morning with a few mates. Not doing much, doing even less after he left.
So I shot back, oh yeah, what breed of dog was it?
Dogs don't need cap teeth and braces.
Alicia, you look hideous. You've got a backside as big as the rear end of a bus.
You don't have to be Einstein to love this book.
It was his place, this baggy hole.
If we'd have been any hotter, we would have made steel.
I'm next to the circle of mums. Their bathing caps decorating the water like floating flowers.
There was even talk of the BHP leaving.
All the children had been decapitated.
He staggered home with a wobbly boot, thanks to Dr. Cooper's.
They burp and fart and think it's a huge joke.
These holy walls had witnessed the baptism and death of tall ships and steamers.
We could just stay. What do you reckon, Ellie?
The tears whelmed up inside like a great tidal wave. Then I said, I am Aboriginal.
In the depths, where the pebbles meet, there we shall find our tales.
I'm lost for words. Next, we have Paul F. Walsh, OAM, on the current reality and need for healing of this place of healing.
Before I start, Ray, that's all I've got, mate. Blank on the back. And you'd have to be a doctor to read the handwriting. Yeah, I think you got stories in your head. You'll be right. Yeah, I think I can make it. You know, moving. You're right about the film, bringing it all back. I felt a tear in my eye. Just really, it's amazing how it does that. And I thank our mutual friend, Keir Enderby, who worked with us very hard on that film. Watching the film actually takes me off script, Ray, strangely enough, to recall that the essence of Novocastrian Tales and Yallarwah Place and the Currawong project was always about Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people working together at every level that we could possibly make it. Many people here know, Ray included, that one of my favourite images that kind of sums up all the projects that Susan and I and Ray particularly were involved in across those years was I was on the back of a truck up at Yallarwah Place, literally shoveling manure into the bushland with 3 Aboriginal ladies on the back of the truck. And one of the ladies turned around to me and she said, you know, I never thought I'd be standing on the back of a truck with a white fella shoveling shit. And in a way, that moment encapsulates a lot of the big magic that Susan was talking about and why so many of us became friends
because we shoveled shit together, basically. And we had a great faith in what we were doing. Another point I'd like to make is that the Yallarwah site is believed to embody the first united Indigenous, non-Indigenous memorial in Australian history. And that is quite relevant to our topic today. But before moving on to that, I'm not sure, Sharon, are you up there? I can't see from my reading glasses. Yeah, okay. I just want to make very clear at the outset that this is a wonderful, collaborative, reconciling moment for all of us. And though I have to discuss some unfortunate aspects of Yallarwah today in the current sense, we do so in a great collaborative spirit. There's no attempt by Ray, Susan and I at all to be complaining or blaming or criticising. This is all about reconciling. And in that sense, before I start anything else, I want to pay tribute to our Hunter New England Health comrades, at least one of whom's here at the moment in the form of Sharon Barrick. And I want to tell you a little bit about how that relates to Susan's big magic, because we believe the big magic of Novocastrian Tales and Yallarwah Place and the Currawong project is most certainly still happening. And this was evidenced recently by Susan and I and Ray in our physical return to Yallarwah. And none of us had been there really in the last 20 years. I'd been there once. But the three people we met were very interesting from Hunter New England Health. Sharon Barrick, I won't give all her titles, she has a lot of long titles. Sharon's in the Barrick family. And of course, Peter Barrick, who many of us would know from the trade union movement. I marched on the streets with Peter. Peter once advised me in Hunter Street, he said, turn that way and smile. You want to get a good photo for ASIO. He said, you want a good photo for your file, mate. And Peter was also a great supporter of Novocastrian Tales, and of course the entire trade union movement and business community equally were great supporters. Another person I met that day as part of the big magic was Dr. Ramsey Awad, who has just joined us, I notice. He's with Sharon. Now, Ramsey's a very unusual man. I affectionately refer to him as Pharaoh Ramsey I. And he's one of those rare gentlemen that I actually felt an immediate warmth and affinity with. I'm sorry to butter you up publicly so well, Ramsey, but
I'm loving it, Paul. You keep going. No one said anything nice about me for years. So.
This is a day of truth telling. Now, the Pharaoh himself could let you know as to why I refer to him as the Pharaoh, but I'll give you a hint. He's currently building $1 billion hospital that he's in charge of. And he also thanked Ray and I and Susan for bringing him an extra job in the form of Yallarwah Place. And the third person, now I want to say something else about Ramsey. Oh. Amazingly, as we were walking along, I mentioned who the architect of Yallarwah Place was, and Ramsey then had said that he had been lectured by Peter McMullen in architecture. And once again, Susan's big magic theory was applied. And then Sharon and Ramsey decided we'd go down to the head executive of John Hunter Hospital, a new head called Julie Tate. And out Julie comes and advises us that I taught her mathematics in high school. So I think for all of us, we were all starting to feel the spirits moving, weren't we, right? It felt like a kind of spiritual communion happening, to be honest, which was very odd considering that we were all coming together to look at the current reality of Yallarwah. How this started in recent times is that I was approached, Susan and I actually were approached by a businessman on the street, literally, who jobs regularly through the site, and he advised us that Yallarwah was in serious trouble and that we needed, well, he didn't say we needed to do anything, but he basically, I think the basic word being used was disgrace in terms of the state of the site. I then visited the site on my own, and then shortly thereafter, Susan and I and Ray got to visit with these three lovely people who I just mentioned. I think we all decided disgrace was too harsh, and that the word we came up with was neglect. Ray has since raised a point with me about that, that I kind of ascribe to, suggesting that neglect's a bit harsh, because neglect implies a kind of conscious knowledge that you're neglecting something. And we don't think that was really the case. What we think is the case is that what's believed to be the first United Memorial in Australia was suffering from memory loss. And perhaps, Ramsey, I think that term I use, perhaps institutional amnesia, which affects all institutions. So there was no ill will here or ill intent. It's just the passage of time in our human way of things unfolding beyond any of our control in some senses. So what issues were they? Well, I have written about them extensively, and if anyone wants to read my, I suppose, emotive response, it's in the article Return to Yallarwah, which I think Gianni's putting up on the screen partly. Also in that article, there are visual shots of the site, both now and then. But we can just hold there for a second, Gianni. As I approached the building, I noted in the first instance that the two rather wonderful gum trees that used to guard the entry to the Yallarwah Accommodation Centre were now what I refer to as two sad stumps. And as I approached the building, I looked at the bronze hands and took heart from that bronze still being in great condition. And the hands include two of Goff's hands are up there. The hands that drop soil into the right hand of Vincent Lingiari. Uncle Bob's up there, Ray's up there. Our friend Jane Gray is up there from, well, then it was Hunter Health. And as Susan said, Jane was the first person to get in touch with Novocastrian Tales when I rang up that day. And that set off a whole chain of Jane and Paul interrelations across those years. Now, then I went into the building itself. And the first thing I noticed was that the beautiful artwork done by an Aboriginal gentleman named Lyndon Dargan had been completely covered by kind of new generic flooring. And this artwork was the artwork at the centre of our whole project, a black spirit welcoming a white spirit. I also noticed that suddenly the walls of Yallarwah, instead of the ochre palette that we had, were incredibly white. There were Aboriginal artworks, but it was blessed with an incredible whiteness that seemed a little bit out of concert with what we were doing. I then looked upward, and I think Ray and Susan particularly noticed this, and someone has put a false ceiling in that blocks the cathedral ceiling of the foyer which look up into the Eagle Hawk's head. I should indicate that the building was designed as an eagle hawk astride a flying boomerang. So when you came into the original building, you looked up into a cathedral-like foyer space with natural light coming down from the eagle hawk's eyes. That had been totally cut off, and it created what we thought was a culturally inappropriate claustrophobic space from that once had been a beautiful open space.
That's an image of the building when it was open.
Yeah. I then realised that every connection, every image on the walls that had related to the memorial status and to the reconciliation nature of the building had disappeared and been removed. And there was absolutely no connection to Novocastrian Tales or the other projects evident at all. We then proceeded outside to the veranda, and when looking down, we could see that the courtyard, the mural courtyard, with its beautiful mosaics. The mosaics on the ground were built by young Aboriginal prisoners at Cessnock Corrective Centre, is covered in filth, as you can see. And none of us have, we all recognise that this was incredibly inappropriate, but that was that current reality. When we looked up at the building from that picture, we suddenly realised that someone had, over the years, decided to architecturally blind the Eagle Hawk. So the windows that had once brought the natural light into the building and that were the sign of the Eagle Hawk's eyes, as you can see there, have now been covered over, which struck us immediately as being culturally insensitive, to say the least. I then proceeded down the staircase. The steps, unfortunately, were broken and quite dangerous, really, especially at night, I would imagine. We went further down the trail into, for those who don't know, the memorial site is blessed with a trail that is in the form of the rainbow serpent, and it has dual, like everything else in Novocastrian Tales and Yallarwah Place, it has dual symbolism. Everything was incredibly inclusive. So the serpent also represents the Hunter River as it goes through the bushland. And the serpent eventually comes to Yallarwah Circle of Reflection, which represents equally Newcastle Harbour and the Serpent's Head. And within the Circle of Reflection is the bronze Novocastrian Tales book, which explains the symbolic links to the relationship between the Reverend Lancelot Threlkeld and Birribin, the leading Aboriginal man of our history, whose name means Eagle Hawk. As we move through the bush, that's in the past, and see the lovely verdant bushland, we realised that the bush had been significantly degraded. And we also realised that the new road coming into the hospital is significantly impacting the Serpent's Head, particularly the Circle of Reflection. You'll get a photo in a minute showing you. That's interesting. The outdoor furniture, one of them was so bad it's been propped up on a sewage outlet. If we keep going, if you come down, that's Bob Carr, the Premier, planting his tree with a kookaburra guarding him. And you once again can see the bushland is beautiful around the serpent. That's the current state of the bronze book. That white thing you can see there, that's the road. See the serpent's head's in the foreground with the stones. And that's the impact the road is having on the pivotal point in the memorial. However, that's just giving you a bit of a rough view. The Serpent is also very badly degraded by drainage issues. In fact, it was a bit dangerous underfoot. I think we all collectively agree about that. Now, the magic that happened, the big magic that Susan was referring to, happened inside the Serpent's head once again, where Ray and I and Susan were standing with Ramsey and Sharon and Julie from Hunter New England Health. And I think we all felt the spirit of the place, to be honest. And we all recognised that the beauty was still there. And in fact, Ray mentioned that the spirits of Uncle Bob and Uncle Bill were still with us there at the site. And remarkably at that point, we felt the true empathy of the Hunter New England Health team. And one of my major purposes today is to congratulate them for their utter professionalism and empathy with regard to this situation, which really was not of their personal making. But I think all three of us were very grateful for that empathy and for that understanding. And out of that meeting in the Serpent's Head came a collaborative desire to restore this site in conjunction with its national significance and also its health significance for the Aboriginal families who stay in the building. So having said that, I hope I've done some justice to the circumstances. Ray, Susan, do you feel I've left anything out? Do you have anything further, Ray, you want to add?
Well, just to mention that I did have to step away for probably 5 minutes of your talk, Paul, but I do understand your how deep and how real the memory of the place and all of the twists and turns that took to raise Yallarwah from the ground, to then also be able to project an historical story that intertwined both black and white stories, with a view that it was to build a place, and this is why place is so important. That it built a place to support those who are less fortunate than others, and to be able to provide, a place for those in need. And so I do recognise that, I do recognise the work that both yourself and Susan, gave to this wonderful place. I do recall also the spirit in which our communities came together on that day. Uncle Bob and his sisters, Auntie Zelma, and any number of people that I can just remember. And when I see those images, I recall what a powerful, uplifting day it was. And so, things occur, and I would, just reiterate with you that it's such a powerful opportunity here for us all right now to not let go of some of those special memories, but also to see whether or not they actually could be useful today. I'm not going to say too much more than, from my perspective, I'm just I'm just so proud to look back and realise that I've been involved in something so very special.
Thanks, Ray. Well, Susan, you are?
Yeah.
I'd like to conclude by just saying something that is probably self-evident, but what is believed to be the first united Indigenous, non-Indigenous memorial in Australia, a place of healing, is in need of healing itself. And I'd now like to hand over to the great people who are in charge of that healing. And, I'd emphasise that Ray and I and Susan are acting as advisors to the Pharaoh and his team. And we have absolute faith in their passion and goodwill to bring healing to this very, very special place. Over to you, Pharaoh Ramsey.
Thank you. I'm a bit humbled by the Pharaoh, but thanks. I can't wait to ring my mum and tell her. She'll be very excited. I've been referred to as Pharaoh, but it's lovely. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having Sharon and I, and particularly thank you to Ray and Paul and Susan for bringing to our attention the neglect of this space, the walk and the wonderful premises that we have there. It is an area that's used by a lot of Aboriginal families, and it's an integral part of us delivering care here at the John Hunter Hospital. And although, thank you, Paul, for pointing out it's not something we've neglected personally, and it's not part of our area of responsibility to maintain a number of our facilities across the district, but bringing it to our attention has highlighted that we have neglected it, and I apologise on behalf of Hunter New England Health that has occurred. And Sharon and I and our broader team have been working very hard in terms of how we address that neglect. But what I'm going to do is we've got a bit of a presentation. I want to talk to you specifically around what we're doing at the John Hunter campus, but I want to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing more broadly. I've been in my role here for 5 years. It's actually 5 years today is my anniversary. And Sharon has been with my team for the last 2 years. And I'll put up a little presentation, just walk you through what we're doing here at Hunter New England, because Aboriginal engagement is at the forefront of what my team does. And I'll walk you through some of the things we've been doing with a greater focus on this particular campus also. Has that come up for everyone?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So I know there would have been, I'm sorry I missed the beginning of the meeting. We've got our executive meeting today and I've just stepped out for this, which is an honour. But I'd like to also pay my respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional custodians of land, rivers and sea, and acknowledge and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging of all nations. Sharon and I are on Awabakal and Warramai land here at the John Hunter campus. So for those of you who don't know, Hunter New England, we're huge. We're the size of England geographically. We're the largest health service in New South Wales. We are the largest employer in this region as well. We've got over 20,000 employees now, 120 facilities. Our budget, it's closer to $3 billion now. And we also have the busiest emergency department in the state and the second busiest in the country. So we're a big health service. We're the only health service that covers a large metropolitan area, which is the Newcastle, Lake Macquarie region, and then a huge rural area, which takes us all the way up to the Queensland border. So we're big and it's complicated. My part of that big complicated world is infrastructure. So I'm responsible for building everything in that area. We also do all the planning of what clinical services we need in this entire region, and also sustainability is part of my portfolio. And very, very early on in my role here, it became apparent that that we weren't acknowledging and understanding that the importance the built environment had to Aboriginal people, and its role it played in creating a sense of belonging and a sense of kinship. And unless we understood that as the people that were designing and building these facilities, and I'm going to share with you what we're building over the next coming 5 to 6 years, then we're really neglecting a wonderful opportunity to improve the journey for Aboriginal people across our health district, and importantly that sense of healing and accelerating healing. So early on within this team, and that brought on the recruitment of Sharon into our team, is that we wanted to boldly go out and say how important engaging our Aboriginal communities in developing our infrastructure was, but ensuring that we built very meaningful relationships and followed through with that good intent, with actual genuine engagement and real tangible outcomes. So we, these are all the projects I've got on at the moment within our team. The biggest here is in the top left-hand corner, which is the John Hunter Health and Innovation Project, which, as Paul said, is close to $1 billion. I won't run through all those projects, but you can see we've got a lot of projects in many rural areas in Moree and Glen Innes, Gunnedah, in Varel, and a number of projects closer here in the Hunter region. But we've got a lot of work and a lot of responsibility in that space. So we started with a vision for my team. It's very straightforward. There's 3 parts to it. One is that we engage with compassion, wisdom, and respect for culture. And Sharon helps us do that very well and is a wonderful member of our team and a strong advocate for the Aboriginal community. The second part was learning from the past and us doing things better in the future. This is so important, particularly in our sustainability agenda. And if you don't know, we are planning to be carbon and waste neutral by 2030. We are the leading health service, public or private, in this country in terms of sustainability. And caring for country is a key pillar in the work that we do. And that stems from the past knowledge and the current knowledge of our Aboriginal people. And finally, growing together and building those relationships is so important for us. So that's broadly our vision and very simple. But why is it important? And this is relevant from a health perspective, that, and a lot of you will know a lot of these stats, but Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are admitted 30% more than other people. And they have a much greater burden of disease into our health services here at Hunter, New England. And this is where the infrastructure piece comes into play. 32% of Aboriginal patients don't access our health services due to cultural appropriateness, feeling unsafe in those spaces. And a lot of that has to do with how we design our facilities and how we make people feel welcome when they arrive and when they stay here as inpatients. And the feedback we receive is that people feel uncomfortable in health services. They have an institutional feel to them, many of them. And this is a very disturbing statistics that people discharge 5 times greater, Aboriginal people discharge 5 times greater than the rest of the population against medical advice because of this feeling of uncomfortableness that they have. We also, and Sharon's highlighted a lot of this for us as well, is that this sense potentially of shame. Even we've redesigned all of our new inpatient bedrooms, our overnight rooms, and just even the simple fact of asking for chairs, you know, as visitors can create a sense of shame, and us understanding that and building that into our design has been important. And we know that creating emotionally designed spaces is a determinant of health outcomes. And we know that if you create spaces which are culturally respective and culturally comfortable, the people will heal a lot quicker and discharge from hospitals. And if you didn't know, Hunter, New England, we have the highest Aboriginal population in New South Wales. So it is fundamental that we are leaders in this particular space. So that's why it's important. That's why we're doing our work. So our goals is to developing and maintaining those authentic relationships and really listening, embedding that cultural knowledge in creating these spaces. And Sharon's going to share with you some of the work that we've done in the last few years. We also, and this is part of today, and we're so grateful to be here, is we want to build confidence with people like Paul and Ray and Susan and the broader community that we are passionate about this and want to make a tangible difference. And we want to also build the knowledge of our staff, of the team that report to me, of the builders we get to come and build the hospitals, of the architects that come and design this space. So we are building awareness within the project teams, which are often in the thousands of people. So our areas of focus, and I'm going to hand over to Sharon in a moment, and she'll talk about specifically what we're doing in a number of these spaces. So we focus on planning, design, and these are all the areas which I'm accountable for, the construction aspects of our hospitals, art, sustainability are our 5 key areas that we work through. Sharon, do you want to walk through then some examples of what we're doing in those spaces?
So when we talk about planning, we're talking about having regular catch-ups with our community, our Aboriginal community, our local community from our footprint of Hunter New England sits in. So having regular face-to-face working groups regarding service design. So what does it look like? What should it look like? How does it feel when you go into a hospital? Coming down to paint colours, material choices, all of those things. Clinical service planning, so recognising the importance of the Aboriginal population, so within our footprint, the growth and the health demand, how they constantly change and keeping up with that. Creating Aboriginal health impact statement. So every service within Hunter New England has an Aboriginal health impact statement, and that's what they live by and that's how they work every day. And importantly, which ties into everything, it's emotional design. So having those conversations with people with lived experience and shaping that into the design of the build. So this is just some photos of some of the planning sessions that we've had. So the bottom one on the left-hand side is our Cessnock Hospital. So we've got a group of residents, local elders and our architects. They come to all of our meetings. On the right-hand side, we have one of our Aboriginal staff members from one of the art sessions that we had at John Hunter as well. So when we talk about design, the first step of that is to develop cultural competence within our project team. So for us here, within our team, as well as the staff on site at John Hunter, we have regular on-country sessions. So what that looks like, it might look like a trip down to Kenton and Auntie Carol at Bardabar and going through Belmont Lagoon and learning the history there. It also involves going out to country onto Warramai sand dunes and learning about that as well. We did have some sessions here on site too, where we learnt about the plants and the animal species on site as well. So this is ongoing, and we will do this for the life of the build, plus post-build as well. So we invite our local elders and community representatives to participate in those as well. Yarning circles with community elders, leaders, and creating champions as well. So we know that we can't do it all by ourselves, but thankfully we have people like Paul, Susan, Uncle Ray, you know, people like my Pop Peter used to be as well. So cultivating our champions and advocating for us as well. And working closely with our building providers who operate and trusted in the community. So it's about also getting sustainable jobs for our community residents as well. So this is just some of our cultural immersion as well that we participated in. So we've got Glen Innes, Cessnock and Warramai. And this room is the NICU bereavement room. So this was the first taste of designing with country as such since I came on board. So we were able to get some funding from Newcastle Permanent Building Society and the Nicholas Trust Foundation, and we were able to create a emotionally and culturally safe bereavement room for our families in NICU. So it means that our families that have, given birth or have a baby that passes can actually go and spend time with their baby in a culturally safe zone as well. So moving forward, and since I've been here prior to me coming on board, Ramsey's made the commitment that his team will provide cultural education opportunities to staff and building partners on all of our projects. So that's across our district. We now do walk on country site inspections at the start of every infrastructure build. So learning about the history of that site and understanding what was here before we were. We also smoke our sites prior to clearing the project sites as well. So we have done a saltwater clearing and we've also smoked our sites prior. And we were very thankful that on our John Hunter site, we were able to have Uncle Ray Smith and Uncle Justin Ridgway come and do a dual smoking as well. As a part of obviously sustainability and keeping that circle going, we are refurbishing culled trees into furniture and artefacts as well. So looking for active opportunities within our local men's groups or land councils to do that as well. So when we cleared the trees from behind John Hunter, we went through and collected seeds that we will replant at our new hospital. So we were able to get over 500 seeds of native Australian species as well. So this was a really good learning curve for all of us. And I think we learned how to identify most trees on site now, which is pretty cool. Art is a big place in our emotional design. So if you've come to John Hunter, which I'm sure most of you have, you'll know that art is it takes a lot of pride on the walls in John Hunter. So facilitating the establishment of connections with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander artists. So we want to provide an opportunity for those little artists to have an opportunity at doing something big as well and giving them that step up that they need. Working with our local Aboriginal community to provide opportunities for those artists. We want to display local and culturally relevant artworks or artefacts and use culturally sensitive colour schemes as well. So that's all a part of designing country. And very importantly, embed wayfinding solutions in culturally specific languages, including the use of pictorial symbols. So that's something that you will see across the new John Hunter as well, our wayfinding. So last year we held our NAIDOC exhibition with our Aboriginal staff across the campus. So we had a expression of interest that staff could complete if they wanted to nominate someone to participate. And this year we had our local elders from across Newcastle and Port Stephens and the Hunter region as well. So it's been very special to hold those here within John Hunter. And we've gone from having around 50 people last year turn up for the opening to about 300 this year, which is a huge increase. So sustainability, we want to continue to build on the momentum of strengthen connections between First Nations people and our local Aboriginal land councils. We want to encourage regrowth of vegetation, and that's something that we'll be doing at Yallarwah. So replanting seeds and also encouraging our wildlife back to the area. And as I said before, repurposing wood for clearing. So tools, weapons, arts and craft, furniture, all of those things. So we actually found some ochre on site, which is now where the new road is going to go. So prior to that, we invited our land councils to come in and to collect some ochre. And we had some Aboriginal artists come in as well. We cleared the site. We had elders present. It was a really beautiful thing to be a part of. And we hope to have an arts piece created out of that ochre displayed in our new hospital as well. So one of the things that we identified within our current hospital is that we don't have a space for our families to gather. Apart from Yallarwah and Uncle Bob's, if a large group of family are gathering on site, we actually don't have a space. So most of the time people will wait in the hallways, and we don't want to have those conversations there. We don't want to have people feel unsafe whilst they're waiting for their loved one during healthcare. So we have committed to create culturally safe preferred spaces within all of our new builds. So what does that look like? Each one will be different depending on where we go. So it's not a one size fits all approach. It's, you know, what works at John Hunter might not work at Moree, and we know talking with our community is going to allow us to work that out. So we want to provide spaces for large families to gather on site with privacy. We want to provide a space where smoking ceremonies can be held for cultural purposes as well. And we want to work with our local communities to ensure each design fits with each community. So it's really important for us to include our community along the way. So now we get on to Yallarwah. Do you want me to keep going?
Of course, yeah.
Yep. So we're well aware that the area needs to be restored, and this is the plan that we hope to do. So I've broken up Yallarwah into interior and exterior in hope that it allow people for it to understand how it's going to work. So talking with Paul knows over the last couple of months, this is a process. And unfortunately, when you've got lots of barriers regarding community and funding and all those things, it will obviously work over a time frame as well. So the interior of Yallarwah, Uncle Bob's place, we want to restore designing with country colours. So we want to bring back that homely feel and remove that stark white walls that Paul talked about before. We're currently investigating, and tomorrow we've got Holly coming on site from EJE Architects to talk about the fire code and research some options around restoration of the eagle's head. So what does that look like, and what do we need to do to restore it to its former glory? And if fire code doesn't allow us to do that, what can we do visually to make it look similar? We're reinstating historical items back to the walls of Uncle Bob's. So all of the pictures that were there when it was first opened will take pride of place in the entrance as well. We're going to refresh the furniture to accommodate for our families. So we understand that the furniture that is currently in there doesn't work for everyone. So there will be a little bit of a freshen up happening there as well. And with Lyndon Duggan's approval, we'd love to install a vinyl design of his artwork to the entry doors, as well as one of the pictures of the exchanging of sand that was used in Paul's presentation as well. So it would be a lovely space for that. The exterior, so top to tail clean, including the facade and courtyard of Uncle Bob's. So we're going to screen the undercroft as well to create a safe space for young families to play. So we know that some of our families that do come in, they've got young kids. The last thing we want to do is keep them locked up inside. So by creating a safe zone underneath the building, it allows people to get outside and get their fresh air and vitamin D. Restoration of Yallarwah Trail, including installation of drainage to minimise future erosion. So we're working with Fulton Hogan, who are building one of the roads into the hospital. They've come on board as a sponsor to restore Yallarwah Trail back to its former glory. But as a part of that, we've had an erosion specialist come in and do a full review of the current trail, and they've mapped out some drainage that they'd like to include. So the trail itself won't change. However, there will be drainage points throughout. So that will minimise any future wear and tear. Installing privacy sound barrier to the head of the serpent from the new road. We're going to plant lots of trees around the trail, so filling in those gaps, planting some of the seedlings that we've taken off site, bringing them back, including a new cedar tree as well. So we do take note that the cedar tree that was previously planted has died, so we're wanting to reinstall that as well. And we want to, and thankfully we have an artist in our team that is able to restore the art pieces in the courtyard, including providing sealants. So they'll be upheld in the weather as well. So it's important to know that this journey consists of ongoing communication with the Yallarwah working group members and the John Hunter Close the Gap collaborative staff as well. So this is a journey itself. I like to think of it a bit like the beginning of Yallarwah again. So as I said before, Fulton Hogan have generously donated their time to assist with the restoration of the Yallarwah Trail. So that also involves education around Yallarwah Trail. What was it? How was it created? Who are our pivotal players as well? So Paul's going to happily talk about that. We've discussed that. As well as adding it to our orientation at John Hunter as well. We think it's super important to be included. An erosion specialist has investigated the drainage, where Vlars Nikolewski is going to redo the bronze sculptures, so obviously hit an expert in his space. Replacing the wooden furniture along the trail, so unfortunately you won't see a chair on top of a sewer main anymore, they'll be new. It's really important to bring wildlife back in as well, so creating some additional birdhouses to really create that serene space as well. So this project is really a collaboration between multiple parties to ensure cultural respect is upheld during the journey as well. So we're looking at hopefully commencing around November, and we're aiming to be finished by end of January, ready for Yallarwah's birthday in 2024. So that's it.
And thank you, guys. That's a wonderful presentation. Thank you for your generosity of spirit and all the work that's actually gone into that in a very small amount of time, really. As we all know, but someone should say it, so I'm the idiot saying it, man.
Well, we're happy to take questions and any comments.
Is the house currently in use?
Yes. Yep. So we currently have a wait list for the house. So the house is always at maximum capacity. So when we do the tidy up inside, we are going to have to close the house for a week, which means that we will need to rehome our residents that are currently staying in there. However, we do have 2 other cottages on site that we can use. The only difference is that they're not, I would say Uncle Bob's is probably the pick out of the 3 cottages on site. So yeah, it's going to be a massive difference adding colour back in, and whilst it does still look very pretty, it will look a lot prettier once it's reinstalled to its former glory.
And one of the opportunities we have, and when Paul was there, the architects designed a potential expansion space into the Undercroft area, and our architects that are coming tomorrow, we're going to ask them to have a look at that and see whether that's still a potential. One of the areas we can collaborate on together and try to raise some funds is if we can create extra space down there, we should maybe work on and try to generate some fundraising that might fund something in the coming years to expand Uncle Bob's there. And create some additional space that can be utilised, because it is in high demand. So that's something we can look forward to.
And that also, Ramsey, as you will remember, if we completed the 2 edges of the boomerang, we get the extra water tank underneath. If for this plan, I know it's possibly going to be changed, but it leads to that concept of looking after the new plantings. Like, as well as doing the plantings, obviously there's going to be a plan to nurture the new plantings in their early years anyway. So, and water's a thing, as you know.
And as you said, you talked about the Undercroft, but I think originally there was supposed to be 2 sections at the end, on both ends, isn't it?
Yeah,
right?
that's what Ramsey and I were just talking about, completing the boomerang at either end. I can tell you that again, Ramsey. I doubt that you've forgotten it, but
I remember.
Yeah. So basically, it's got we'd already dug out the Undercroft extra for that other extension you were mentioning, and plus the 2 curves on the end created the other room, storage room, plus the water tank and veranda. And we'd all be very happy to help, mate, as we said, in the future, in terms of trying to get together a co-creative fundraising campaign to achieve that. Because it looks like something begging to happen, really.
Yeah, it does. And look, we at Health, like the rest of the country, we are entering a period of incredibly tight budgets, still recovering from COVID, and money is very, very scarce within government at the moment. And as I said earlier, I've just come out of our executive meeting talking about our budgets and how tight it is and how much we're struggling just to get funding to recruit frontline clinical staff at the moment. So we do need to work together to help raise those dollars if we can, and it's something we will address and partner with enthusiasm with anyone who wants to play.
Well, I believe that's absolutely not only possible but probable, my friend. Really, for all the past reasons of what Yallarwah and Novocastrian Tales brought in such a massive community, business and trade union response, I see no reason why, if we all ignited the fire again together, why something similar might not happen. Can my Virgo moon ask you a question, Randy?
Absolutely.
You know that pain in the arse detail mind of mine?
Yes. I know it well, Paul.
just in a short time.
We all do, yeah.
Well, riddle me this, Pharaoh. Did that other tank exist like I said it did? The tank on the western end car park, the water tank? Is it still there? I said it was hidden in the undergrowth.
I don't think it's there.
You're not sure?
Sharon's telling me she doesn't think it's there because it was one of our tasks.
Yeah, my businessman reckoned that it was hidden by a whole bunch of growth over it. But Sharon may well be right. I didn't see it myself. That's why I was asking whether we'd be able to utilise it at all.
We'll double check for you, Paul.
I'm down there tomorrow, so I can
Needs
check.
to know, Randy.
Paul, can I declare a conflict of interest? Because I've just noticed him in the room, but one of my dearest friends and the most delightful person in the world, Michael Sheriff, is sitting at the end of the room. Can I just say, I've known Michael since he was a little baby in nappies, and he's the most wonderful person in the whole world. And Michael's stepdad, Mick, who sadly passed away a year and a half ago, was my best friend in the entire world, my second dad in Newcastle. And I just noticed Michael there. So it'd be remiss of me not to acknowledge Michael Sheriff there, whose mother I had coffee with this morning, Vicky.
Big magic.
It is. And Paul, you mentioned Jane Gray earlier. Jane Gray is one of my dearest friends and was at my house on Saturday night for dinner. So it feels very reassuring to have you mention Jane and to have little Michael, as we call him, in the audience. So hello, Michael.
Indeed. Well, I don't think I've spoken to Jane for 20 years or seen her, but we're forever friends.
Yes,
because of the intensity of the experience we had through Novocastrian Tales. I think it's bonded us like steel, to be honest. Yes. That was true of many of us. But look, thank you so much.
Hang on, we've got a question. Jude. Jude has got a hand up.
Hello.
Unmute Jude. Unmute Jude.
You're still muted.
Yep, I've unmuted. Okay, what a great project. I've actually been there a few times, walked up through the bush from Jesmond and found that place and loved it. I just want to make sure, as well as nurturing new plantings, will there be a maintenance scheme that makes sure that it doesn't deteriorate again like it has at present? So I just want to really push for an ongoing maintenance scheme.
No, Jude, it's an excellent question, and it's something that we are going to address. And one of the things we're doing when looking at the trail, it's virtually impossible to maintain these bush trails unless they're designed appropriately. So I think there's been a lot of advancements, and we've all been on bushwalks in how to develop these trails which can last for a long time. Sadly, I think the original trail that was built was created without the knowledge that there was a huge water causeway at the bottom of the hill there, and sadly over many, many years has just deteriorated, and people have tried to fix it. So one of the things we're doing with Fulton Hogan when they come in is just making sure it's designed and built properly, like we do get in our national parks, so it will withstand the test of time, and then we can then maintain it. I think the maintenance has been sporadic, and people haven't known how to maintain it properly, so that is absolutely part of our agenda.
Not just the trail itself, but also around, you know, around the various memorials.
The bushland itself, yeah.
No, or not just the bushland itself, also just around when you get to the memorial, like maintained around there as well. But yes, that, you know, what you're doing with Hunter New England Health and what Paul and Susan have done and Ray and everyone in the past, I just give utmost praise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Dan.
The hospital, the whole hospital, of course, the areas around has been absolutely demolished by the road work that's gone through. And the road work is not really well done. And I hope that there are landscape architects that are going to re-establish the surrounds around the hospital, which was so important to the hospital. So far, the works have not complied with the plan, the EIS that was prepared some years ago, but it's really important for the hospital as a great organisation to associate with the roads and traffic to get that revegetated and properly maintained.
Yeah, look, it's a good point. It's the inner city bypass, I think you're referring to, which is that main road being built is being managed by another government agency, not ours, unfortunately.
Yes, I know, but you need to.
We take the point, and we do engage and work with them, and it's something I'll raise with them. So thank you.
It's really in a bad state at the moment.
It's going to be for a lot longer.
Anyway, can I just chip in one little person I want to bring into the room, a very special person, friend of mine, Uncle Bob Smith. We should never forget that it was Uncle Bob's black dreaming of an accommodation centre for the relatives of Aboriginal patients in John Hutter, meeting my white Novocastrian Tales dreaming that made all this happen. And I remember the day I was telling Sharon, when the building is shaped on a boomerang floor, you've helped me here, Ramsey, slab, that's it, that's the word. Boomerang shaped slab. And when the slab was first built, we didn't have a building, obviously, but I got to take Uncle Bob across a builder's plank, literally, so that he could be the first person to stand and take in the view. And Uncle Bob, in my experience, he was a wonderful teller of tales. He obviously led the local health service for some years, but he was a very humble man. And I can tell you this, small crowd, his first words to me when we got out there on the boomerang together was, he said, "Bugger me," he said. "Bugger me." He said, "I was thinking of a small house, Paul, up on the side of the road somewhere." And like, he was so full of wonder about the whole project. And of course, we've all seen him there dispersing the tribal soils in the Serpent's Head at the national opening. I think everyone was amazed that in that crowd, apart from Keith Podker from the Seekers who performed, Charlie Perkins was standing there leaning up against one of the pillars at the opening of Yallarwah to see the fulfilment of Uncle Bob's original dreaming. And I always think, feel that and I know Sharon's talked about this too, we've talked about bringing Uncle Bob a bit more into some of the symbolism and things in the restoration. But he was a lovely man, a really humble man. That's what I remember most about him. And I always want it remembered that it was this dual dreaming, the black dreaming of Uncle Bob and the white Novocastrian tales dreaming that made all this happen. And I think it's, as I said at the start when I was speaking, it was literally summed up by the chant, I plant this tree in the spirit of the Currawong, black feather, white feather lifting me. I plant this tree to call upon all Australians to replant the shared future together. And I think that message is more resonant now, the way the country is going, than it was then. But Uncle Bob, his dreaming was a huge part of that, and I just wanted us to have his spirit here with us just to finish off with. Over to you, John.
Thank you very much. Yes, just to chime in with Paul, everything that's happened about this is going to be great hope that Newcastle and this region are still nation leaders. And thank you very much, Dr. Awad and Sharon, for as Paul said, the professionalism that you took with getting slapped with this bad news, and your reaction just brought great joy to me. And I thought, look, this is what Canberra needs, I think, on a national level. This approach, just get on with it and do it. I mean, and stop mucking around, stop sending it off to the media and marketing department to fix or to respin. Just do it, you know. So thank you very much for coming along today. Thank you for sharing everything. We've still got a bit of this agenda to go before we finish in a few minutes' time. But yes, just...
I'm putting one last thing in. If ever you want someone to restore a memorial built in stone, what better man than the Pharaoh?
Lovely.
A lot of Egyptian experience.
Okay. Fantastic.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Our pleasure. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay, so John Whitty, you have a fantastic Rainbow History evening coming up. The Yellow Socks Club, Newcastle's biggest gay scandal. It looks fantastic. Would you like to say a few words?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Excellent. It's a dual presentation. Kerry Bashford will be giving a talk, and it's based on his performance piece, which is called Forbidden Yellow. And I'll give another talk about what I think is the second wave of arrests in 1958 of the gay men of Newcastle. I was talking to friends at a dinner, we have an old gay men's dinner, and he reminded me of his former partner, who was a Second World War veteran, who was active in the early 50s in Sydney. He said that Yellow Socks was a Sydney phenomenon. Wow. And the corner of the Woolworths corner in George Street was where they would assemble, and they would make contact with men walking by. The police would then turn up and watch them, and if they had eye contact with anybody walking by, they would arrest them. And although that sounds absurd, it does fall in line with changes in 1955 to the Crimes Act. So the police could actually just watch somebody, and if they looked at another man, they could arrest them. So I'll be covering that, and I'll be arguing that maybe Newcastle was the first, and maybe we exported Yellow Socks to Sydney as well as steel.
Fantastic, John. So that's happening at 5:30 p.m. Sunday, the 15th of October at Bernie's Bar, which is the 4-star hotel. Is that correct?
That's right, yes.
John, I have a question for John.
Yep.
Can I do this?
Yes.
John, you may remember that this is not me being down to myself, mate, God knows, but one of my books, 2 Stars, which honoured all the victims of AIDS in Newcastle and the Hunter. And I was asked to do it by the parents' grieving groups at the time. And the proceeds went to the park in Carrington. So it was at side of the Carrington for obvious reasons in terms of McKillop House. It's when you across the bridge, it's on the right-hand side. Susan and I were there recently. I'm not holding you responsible, John, but it's making awareness, spreading awareness And we noticed that the little seat is in ruin almost, and the 2 stars plaque that they glued to a stone near the seat, it was that 2 stars quote about the young girl whose parents had died from AIDS. And when her father was dying, she said to him, he used to tell her mum was a star in the sky above Nobby's, and he'd take her for a walk down there and show her the star to talk to her mum. And then when he was dying, she said, what'll happen to me? And he said, well, there'll be 2 stars there now. Well, that has come away from its plinth and is in the long grass. And I intend to go back and get it and give it and ask Newcastle City Council to do the right thing and actually restore that site. I know I'm starting to sound like a memorial restoration person. It's just that a number of my books have been involved with memorials. And as you would remember, a lot of that was about the fact that the grieving parents and lovers and friends wanted a place, and we planted trees there. We all planted trees in that park as a memory for those people. So I'm just sort of raising it that it has been in bad neglect. I'm going to write to Nuatali and ask her whether or not the council can get involved to do some positive work there, that's all.
I'd just like to say something, Paul. I've just been in touch with the council. I went into that park recently because a friend of mine, Judith Gatland, who was one of the bereaved parents that helped.
Judith was one of the leading people to work with.
She just died. So I had a look at the park and the sign, and as you said, all those things need fixing. And the sign calling it the Memorial Park was leaning against a tree. So I have got the council to put the sign into the ground again. But the thing is, they didn't even clean up the sign. The sign needs a clean up as well. So they have recently just put the sign in the ground. But so can you mention get the sign cleaned as well?
Well, unfortunately, there's unconscious racism in our society, unconscious racism, obviously, but there's also unconscious homophobia as well as conscious homophobia. And it does, often in my mind, I get concerned as a community person when I note the sites that seem to be getting neglected. They tend not to be, white hetero sites or and so forth. So yeah, did you notice, Judith, whether or not the little 2 stars float? There's like a silver plaque that was attached to a rock and near that seat.
There is a plaque there.
Still there? Have they reattached it to the stone?
I think it was attached to the stone, but it's all very vague. Like there's something here and something there, and there's not a sort of a connecting theme
Can
to
I just say a
explain
few
exactly.
things
Sorry,
before
John.
we close? I noticed that some time ago, and I talked to Daniel McCarthy at ACON and suggested that ACON organise things or do something, and he was reluctant to do anything until he talked to Judith Gatlin or someone who was involved with the park. So he wasn't going to touch it until he talked to the original people who originally put it together.
Well, Judith just died a few weeks ago,
Okay.
and I'm sure she would want it kept. I'm sure she would want it maintained.
Yeah, and that sign was knocked over by what's happened is that the printing works car park has sort of encroached on the park, and it just smashed that thing over. It was in the grass, but the council put it up.
But Newcastle City Council has a memorials committee.
Yeah.
Headed by Carol Duncan.
Yeah,
So
how about I write to Carol and Nuatali, John and Judy, if I do that?
Yes, that's a good idea.
Write to Carol and Nuatali and ask them to do something about it in honour of all the people that we honoured who suffered through that terrible, terrible epidemic. Memorials on it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Consider the resolution passed. Anne, did you want to mention it?
Oh, just a final mention, and it's linked into the blog post, but one of our PhD candidates from Grieve is publishing a book called More Than Coal, Exploring Significant Natural History of the Lower Hunter Valley, Creative Ways to Love It. So it's launched on Thursday the 9th of November at 5 o'clock at Newcastle Library Local Histories Lounge. So all the information's on the blog post. If anyone's interested.
So are there any quick updates anyone wants to share? Right, any other updates before we bring this momentous showcase to a close? Okay, well, thank you very much to all those who left. Thank you to all our presenters, Professor Roberts, Susan Harvey, and Paul Walsh, Dr. Ray Kelly, Dr. Ramsey Awad, and Sharon Barrick. Thank you very much for a very special day. I wish it all the best. I hope those other memorials get fixed up as well. And hopefully we'll continue to be a catalyst in this direction. So see you later. Thank you very much. We'll see you next month for our November meeting.